What's going on, guys? Andrew Piluk Hockey here, back again with another video. Today I'm going to be talking about whether or not the Toronto Maple Leafs could be interested in PK Subban, whether or not it would be a good fit. This was recommended by somebody that I make a video on this, so if you have a player or a trade or a rumor, something that you want me to talk about, leave it down below, recommend it down below. I'm not saying that this is an active rumor and that the Leafs are getting Subban or I'm starting something here. This is just a discussion video and it's something that somebody recommended. And a lot of you guys who are watching this right now aren't subscribed, so please, it would help me a lot if you like this video and subscribe. It's completely free for lots of Leafs content, especially going towards the trade deadline and everything like that. I make a ton of videos like this, so please like and subscribe. It does help me a ton. But again, thank you to the person that recommended this video to me. Recommend some down below. But this has kind of been a thing that has been talked about for years now. If the Toronto Maple Leafs could get a guy like PK Subban as a guy who can play in their top four, but more than likely now would be a guy that would play in their top six, but be a little bit of an up and down the lineup type of guy, because Subban isn't the greatest anymore. You know what I mean? Like, Subban was at one point in time in the top 10 of NHL defensemen. Some could even argue top 5, which was quite a long time ago. But there's a reason why he's at that $9 million cap hit. When he signed that deal, he was one of the better defensemen offensively. He's always had his holes in his game when it comes to his defensive side, but he's very physical. You know, he's got some slew foot problems that he's done before. But again, I mean, what do you do at this point? The NHL isn't doing anything about it. There's a lot of players in the league that do stuff that, you know, they probably shouldn't get away with, but it happens. And but Subban is a physical presence. He can fight. He doesn't fight as much anymore, but he can. He hits. And some are saying that maybe it would unlock something else if he went home to the Toronto Maple Leafs and lived out something that even, I believe he's even talked about before, would probably mean something to him. And I know a lot of people just point that to every single player that has been from Toronto, but I think Subban is probably a fit that would make sense for the Leafs. And I know a lot of people are already going to be talking about the contract, which I will get to. This was something that I've been thinking about a lot, and it might not work. But if we're looking at the hockey writers, they posted something interesting. So I went and did some research when going into this, and the Devils are currently 9 points out. Now, this is an article from a little while ago, so I will show where they are currently in the standings. But I think it just common sense would say the Devils are probably not making the playoffs. There's a lot of better teams in front of them. Anybody could really see that. So you would have to look at giving up not a ton, but when it comes to giving 50% retention probably from two teams, which would have to happen, you would definitely have to give up something. I mean, Subban's not like, he's not valuable. Subban has value, especially if there's 50% retained and then another team comes in and retains 50% of that as well. He becomes obviously much cheaper for the Toronto Maple Leafs because you're saving a bunch of money. But Subban still would cost assets. But I don't know if it makes sense, and like I said, we're going to go deeper into this. I just kind of want to put my thoughts together here. I don't know if it makes sense for both teams, or if it makes sense ultimately for the Toronto Maple Leafs, but it does make sense. He could be suited in this role, and I don't know. It just does make sense seeing where Colorado, seeing where the New Jersey Devils are currently in the standings. They have 33 points. They're tied with Philadelphia right now. You know, obviously they can leap over teams like Columbus and maybe even Detroit. But at this point, you'd have to look at a lot of these teams and think, are they really better than Boston? No. Are they better than Pittsburgh? No. Are they better than Toronto, Tampa, or Florida? No. I would argue they're not even as good as Detroit, obviously. But you have to look at it this way, where they still could get close up here, but you have to cash in on guys that are going to be free agents. Now, if we're looking at Subban's numbers here, if you're looking at over the years, Subban has had some decent years. It's not like he's been terrible. He does put up a decent amount of points so far this year. He has 14 points in 34 games played. That's not too bad. That would put him close to the top of where the Leafs defensemen are right now. I think he'd be like second or third. I could look that up while I'm talking. But Subban can provide offense. Subban can give you things. I'm gonna look it up right now. But he can give you a lot. Subban can still give you a lot. Like I said, not really defensively because he's had his problems. But if we're talking about in terms of offense and that physical edge and even that mental edge, because he does get lippy with a lot of players. He's been one of those guys for a long time. But he can definitely provide something for you. So if we're looking at points currently, Morgan Rielly has 31. Of course, he's just been on a tear to start the year. But then when you look at points for defensemen, the next guy up is TJ Brody with 11, if I'm not mistaken. I could be completely looking over this right now. But Muzzin also has 11. Then you get into like Sandin and Liljegren and stuff like that. Hall, Dermott. Obviously, adding a little bit more would make sense for the Toronto Maple Leafs in terms of offense, and especially when a guy like Justin Hall would more than likely be a part of this deal. Now, I've said this a million times. The Toronto Maple Leafs, I still think, in my mind, can't exactly go after a guy with term. Well, luckily enough for them, Subban's deal has 1 year left at that $9 million cap hit. And see, this is where a lot of people are looking. You're looking at that massive contract, and you're thinking, how the hell would the Toronto Maple Leafs even be able to afford that? Well, this is how they'd be able to afford it. First of all, the Leafs still need to find a way to trade away that Ritchie contract, because I've said it in a million videos and I'll continue to say it. You can accrue cap space going up to the NHL trade deadline. You save up that little bit of money and you get that money to spend at the trade deadline. It's confusing, but in the simplest terms, the Leafs did it last year. It got them Foligno, it got them Ritchie, whatever. Or not Ritchie, Riddick. I always make that mistake. But if, let's say the Leafs make a deal with New Jersey, get them to retain 50%. Then you include another team, get them to retain 50% of that deal. Now all of a sudden PK Subban is around $2.25 million on your cap, which the Leafs could afford if they're able to make moves. Because if, let's say this is what their roster looks like going into the trade deadline, right? Maybe by then they're able to attach an asset to Nick Ritchie and trade that $2.5 million. Then in any deal, you're obviously including Justin Hall. You're being able to afford Subban if there's double retention. Subban can easily slot in there. You'll still have an extra defenseman in Dermott. And I'd actually feel comfortable with this because honestly, I don't really think Hall and Liljegren or Hall and Muzzin have been working this year. I think Liljegren and Muzzin have been doing okay. Sandin has taken a step. Dermott has been doing okay. But if you get Subban out there and you add that physical edge, maybe that helps. And again, I'm not saying this is the Leafs' number one option. But if it comes down to it and the Leafs are going, okay, we can't afford to go out there and spend first and seconds and top prospects and this, that, and the other on everybody else, maybe we can find a way to get Subban, get him double 50% retention from two teams. He's on the last year of his deal. Throw in it's still going to cost you, but is it worth it? Do you really believe that this guy can help your team? If you do, then these are the assets you spend. Me personally, I don't think Subban is the best option, but I do believe it does make sense in a way that the Leafs would have some sort of interest, especially if they're able to move on from guys like Ritchie and Justin Hall, which Hall would be involved in that trade. But Ritchie, if you're able to get rid of him sooner than later, accrue that cap space going into the trade deadline, and then you're not only making the move for Subban, you're able to make another move for another player. But Subban, again, like I said, he's had some pretty good years. He's had some iffy years, but and from watching him every single year, he's going to give you that maximum compete level. He's only a couple years removed from some pretty good seasons, but again, people always look at numbers, and I'm not just a numbers guy. I like watching, everything on the ice. He does true up like anywhere from 19 to like 23 minutes a night on average. So that's a good chunk of time, which the Leafs would obviously need. And, maybe that gives some rest to guys like Liljegren and Sandin and Dermott. It takes a little bit of the load off of those guys so they're able to play less minutes and be more effective in those minutes. But what my ultimately my point is that sometimes players, they have that maximum potential or that, has been type of look to them, and then they go to another team and it just clicks again. They find it. For some reason, I've always thought that Subban on the Leafs, he could unlock something. I just felt like, when there's crowds, of course, which seems like a luxury at this point, but Subban could feed into that energy. Like, imagine Subban laying a massive hit with a full Scotiabank arena. Like, just imagine that. I feel like that would make so much sense. We just seen him chirping from the bench the other day. I think that this guy could unlock something if he comes to Toronto. But again, I will say, I don't believe that this is the number one option. I don't even believe he's the top 3 option for the Leafs at the deadline. But again, the Leafs aren't the only team looking to upgrade. There's lots of teams, and there's lots of defensemen that the Leafs will not get. It's clear as day. There's a lot of different ways that this could go completely wrong with cap situation, cap stuff, whatever. But if it comes down to it and this deal, comes about, I won't be sad. I just hope it's not an expensive deal if it ever were to happen. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. If you are new here, make sure to like this video and subscribe. Like I said, there's a ton of you guys who watch these videos that aren't subscribed. I'd really appreciate it if you did. To the person that recommended this, thank you so much. I should have said your name, but I wasn't sure if you wanted me to say your name. But recommend players, whatever rumor, trade stuff you want me to talk about. And yeah, hopefully I'll see you guys in the next video or stream. Peace.